Sent. Done.
Hey everybody, this is Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production of From the Arena, and we are live from Staples Center. Proud to be joined once again by none other than the Mayor, John Hoeven. We are here in the wake of the Kings' 4-2 victory in this most important game over the crosstown rival Anaheim Ducks. Mr. Mayor, first of all, just for those people who may live in a cave and don't know who you are, we'll go ahead and put your stats up, your vitals. That's mayorsmanor.com, and also they can follow you on Twitter, and it is worth following on Twitter. Some of the most interesting tweets you can find anywhere at Mayor NHL. And just tell them a little bit about mayorsmanor.com and what you do.
Sure, I appreciate that, Charles. You know, mayorsmanor.com, we, of course, track what's going on in the world of hockey with a left coast slant, if you will. Mainly, we keep an eye on the LA Kings, Manchester Monarchs, Ontario Reign, all the Kings prospects playing in college and up in the junior leagues there, up there in Canada.
All right, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to have another guest later on, which will be Dave Joseph of ESPN 710. But, let's talk about this game. The Kings, they win the game despite being outshot 31-20. They do win this game. So this is one of those where you got to feel good about the win. However, Anaheim really did play well enough to win this game, too.
Yeah, they sure did. And that's one of the things that Matt Green was just talking about down in the locker room. He wasn't too happy with the Kings' defense tonight overall. He said that Anaheim was a puck possession team. They had him pinned in a few times, and he thinks the LA Kings' defense can certainly perform better than they did tonight.
Definitely. We look at the three stars of the game. Number 3 was from the Ducks. That was Francois Beauchemin. Then you had Mike Richards with 3 assists, was the number 2 star, and the number 1 star, Jeff Carter. He finally gets on the board. Jeff Carter, his first goal as a King, he winds up getting 2 goals, 1 on the power play, 1 even strength, which proves to be the game winner here tonight.
Jeff Carter, haven't really heard much about that guy recently. He's kind of flown under the radar, right? No, everybody was excited for Carter to pick up a goal. Just down at King's training facility a couple days ago, when asking the players who they thought was going to score the first goal, if they weren't taking themselves, like Doughty and Brad Richardson and some of those guys, they were all saying that Jeff Carter was going to do it. Everybody was waiting. He's certainly had some chances. Big shot. He's taken a lot of shots. He led the Kings tonight with 5 shots on goal as well.
Definitely. Now, one other thing is, since Carter got here, granted this is the first time he's gotten on the scoreboard, but 3 of the last 4 games, the Kings have scored 4 goals. Now, I didn't do the research to find out when the last time is that happened, but I don't think it's happened at least since probably November.
Of what year? Because it's not 2011, I'll tell you that right now. No, certainly with the addition of Jeff Carter, I think we talked about it the last time I was on your show, Dustin Brown commenting that with the addition of Carter, they now have 2 legit lines, and so teams can't just focus in on Kopitar and who he's playing with and then basically shut the Kings down for the evening. Now that you have Carter playing with Richards, that's a legit second line, and Carter is seeing a lot of time out there on the ice. He's playing on the power play, he's playing on the PK, he's really been used in all situations, which is exactly what Daryl Sutter said when they first acquired Carter from Columbus that he was going to do, and he's done that with big number 77.
Okay, when looking at this game, you mentioned Coach Sutter. Now, what did he have to say? I know you were just down there with the team and doing the press conference thing. Daryl comes out, and did he share some pearls of wisdom with you about the way this game was? Because one of those games where you're happy that you got the win, but getting outshot and really outplayed, even though Jonathan Quick was not one of the 3 stars, but again, though they scored 4 goals in this game, 1 an empty netter, but it was Quick who came up big when he needed to and kept him in the game. Yeah,
Coach Sutter really shares more what I would call the technical side of the game, or his thoughts on the technical side of the game after practices. After games, it's usually it kind of falls into a few buckets of what he likes to talk about. Okay. So tonight, people asked him about what was happening with the young kids, King and Nolan. He continued to say they're playing just fine, and he really doesn't expand too much on that. He really the best comments from Sutter tonight came when he was talking about the upcoming road trip. He doesn't really like to talk about games too much after they've happened. He's already moving on to the next game, and they'll be heading to Nashville. And according to Sutter, like the sign says at the airport, park and ride, and that's kind of what he's thinking about.
Well, when you talk about that road trip, well, let's take a look at their upcoming road trip here in Nashville. is a tough team. They're tough. In fact, I think they're quietly building a juggernaut here in the West, and come playoff time, they could be really dangerous. But
well, according to Sutter, the Preds have not lost at home since Christ was a child. So that was the other quote of the night.
Wow.
He was full of some good quotes.
Every now and then he throws a good nugget out there for us. But the Predators, they go to Columbus. They got the Detroit Red Wings, Chicago Blackhawks, who are topsy-turvy but can hang 6 goals on you any given night. Then when they come back home, they've got Detroit and they've got Anaheim again, and then they've got Nashville. It doesn't get any easier. It's a tough month here for the Kings.
You know, it's a very tough road trip, obviously. Like you said, Nashville, they just don't lose at home. Nashville's pumped up with the acquisitions that they made at the trade deadline. They picked up, obviously, Kostitsyn and Gostad from Buffalo. You know, that's a tough building to win in. And then they have that emotional game in terms of going to Columbus. Jack Johnson will be pretty hyped up about playing his former teammates. Carter's going to want to impress. So, again, a highly emotional game. And then you go into Detroit, and, you know, they really don't lose too often there at the Joe. So that's a tough game. Chicago, the Kings, you know, they'll look back at their previous game in Chicago earlier this year. It was a beautiful 2-0 win for the Kings, which is tough to do there in the United Center. But you're right. I mean, that's 4 games, and they're all going to be tough. Every game down the stretch here is tough because the Kings are battling for their playoff lives right now.
Hey, right, and with this win now, they are 1 point out of the 8th and final playoff spot. But the schedule is tough, and Dallas, who holds that 8th spot, they're playing some of their best puck of the year right now when they really need to.
You know, the Pacific Division really is a weird division. I mean, you have San Jose, who should be running away with things, and they just haven't yet been able to take hold and take off. They were losing again earlier tonight. I didn't catch the final score, but I believe they lost. Yeah.
They lost.
And then, you know, you have Phoenix, who just, you look at that roster, and with all due respect, how in the world are they battling for the Pacific Division?
I don't think they've lost in regulation in their last 10 games.
They're
kind of starting to run away with the division.
It's ridiculous. You know, you have Mike Smith there in goal. I mean, it's crazy. But, of course,
they are still in Phoenix, right?
They are, and they have a well-coached team there by Dave Tippett. But, you know, back to Dallas, like you said, it's another team like Phoenix that wasn't expecting to contend this year, and they continue to play good hockey. And Dallas played some good hockey down the stretch last year as well. So
they missed the playoffs on the last day last year, and that was after trading away James Neal.
Yeah,
at the trade deadline.
Which was a trade that their general manager received a lot of criticism for.
Well, I didn't know whether they were making that trade. Was it a personnel move, or was it about just the money move because of their unsure financial situation there in Dallas? I wasn't really clear on that.
From what I understood, the reason that they did that move is that they felt that they needed a puck-moving defenseman that they hadn't had in a couple of seasons, and that they felt in order to become better, the following season, they knew that Richards was going to be leaving, Brad Richards, that is, was going to be leaving as a free agent. They knew that they were going to need help on power play, and that they needed a big-time mobile defenseman to do that. That was the idea there.
So they got Goligoski, who could be Sergei Zubov light.
And that's really what they were hoping for. And, you know, he got off to a rough start this year, but then they received Sheldon Soare, who nobody knew what to expect with Soare, given that he had, you know, kind of missed a year in the NHL there, and he came back with that big shot, and he's been playing really well for the Stars. So Pacific Division, a very tough division for the Kings.
All right, perfect. Well, also Dustin Brown. Dustin Brown, he had a hat trick last time we did the show, which was, by the way, the very first time that we did the From the Arena show, and the Kings actually won, was against the Blackhawks, and now we got a winning streak going here. But Dustin Brown, 6 goals in his last 6 games, and there was all those trade rumors right near the trade deadline. Obviously, he's still here. It seems like did something go on? Did something click in the head of Dustin Brown, or what happened there?
You know, that's the obvious connection that people are trying to make, and I think it's more a coincidence than anything else. I mean, if you remember back to that show that you're speaking of that we did right here in these very same chairs, I went on the record and said Dustin Brown was not going to get traded. He would still be a member of the LA Kings. He obviously didn't get traded, but the coincidence is that it happened around the trade deadline, and it happened with Jeff Carter, because Carter came in right at the same time, the same day that the trade rumors were breaking loose that he was going to be leaving. Jeff Carter was acquired, and so it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's about having 2 lines, and it's really helping create some space. Dustin Brown was asked tonight after the game for some comments on Carter, and he just said he's a big, fast guy, and that speed has really allowed the team to create more offensively, and you're seeing it with the number of goals they're putting up.
Definitely. The other thing I saw with Carter was he drew a penalty with just that speed and beating Lucas Sabizza around the edge, which as a defenseman, you know, it's the number one thing. You never let anyone beat you around the edge, and he did it. And with that size, that body, that quick shot that he has, I just look at, and I've heard some things. I'm not going to say what the sources were, but I've heard a little bit of negativity, maybe about Jeff Carter. But I like what I see. I liked him in Philly, and you know, it seems like it may be starting to pay dividends here.
Yeah, there were those negative stories that were out there, and I always like to use other players as the barometer rather than use
Right.
what I read in the media. And on mayorsmanor.com, we had Ian LaPerriere, who was kind of turned into our unofficial Philadelphia reporter for Mayor's Manor, and he came on and talked about Mike Richards and some of the negative stories surrounding Mike Richards when he was acquired earlier in the summer. And so we went back to Lappy and talked to him about Jeff Carter, and he clearly understood why the Kings went out and picked up Jeff Carter, not only because of the lack of offense that the Kings have been experiencing this year, but also because of what Jeff Carter can add. He was complimentary towards Carter's skills, said he had a tremendous shot, and Lappy actually went on to predict that Carter was going to get 15 to 20 goals for the Kings, which is just a ridiculous number of goals considering there were only about 20 games left. And it didn't look like Lappy's prediction was going to come true after he didn't score in the first couple of games, but he picks up 2 tonight. He's a streaky goal scorer, and we'll have to see if Carter can keep it going on the road trip. And again, that big game for Carter is going to be that emotional game back in Columbus next Thursday.
And the other thing is, a lot of people will look at Columbus and say, at the bottom, but the Kings have had trouble with Columbus over not just this season, but over the past couple of seasons. There's something about whether it's here or there.
Yeah.
They just seem to have Columbus just seems to have their number for some reason.
Not only Columbus, it's kind of been, and I'm not the first person to say this, but it's kind of been like the Kings play up or down to the level of competition.
Right.
And so you will see them play a tremendous game like they played against Vancouver here on New Year's Eve, the 2-0 game that we talked about, in Chicago, in the United Center, a tough
Right.
building to play. You see what they can do when they're on the road, and then they play some other teams, and they play, the Columbuses of the world, and it's just they look like a completely different team. So you're hoping that that these last couple of games here where the Kings have been scoring, you're hoping that they're able to carry that out on the road. They are going to need a big win in Nashville. It's going to be a tough building to play in, like we talked about. They need that win, though, to carry into Columbus so they can come in on a high rather than, we're on our heels. We lost the first game of the road trip, and now how can we, salvage the road trip?
Right, and I like when you look at Columbus, what they're building there, and the owner's saying, we intend to contend. That's what they said. And as opposed to, if you remember with Columbus, in the earlier days, it was just, what do we have to do to keep the team in the city? Now it's, we're going to build a champion here, and it looks like they're headed in that direction. They're fourth in the conference in goal scoring, although they don't have any top goal scorers, so to speak, on their team, but by committee. And then with the blue line anchored by Ryan Suter and Shea Weber, of course, who should have won the Norris last year. All due respect to Nick Lidstrom, of course, but
Wow.
he should have won it last year. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, let's get the predictions in then early. Who do you have in the lead right now for the Norris?
It's hard to say. They've got this kid Carlson out of Ottawa.
Yeah.
They say, but
I think he has 100 points already, right?
Well, you know what? This is a little pet peeve I have, and that is every now and then we get force-fed some Eastern Conference defenseman who's supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread. Now, first it goes back all the way to Wade Redden, then it was Mike Green, and now it's this kid. And I'll just give him a chance. I haven't really watched him play, but I am really tired of these defensemen, Eastern Conference defensemen, who are supposed to be fantastic. I sit down and say, all right, I'm going to watch them. They're in the playoffs now. And they go belly up. What's the last we heard of Mike Green, by the way? He did some caveman commercials, and then that was about it.
Well, Mike Green's had some injury trouble as well. So, all right, so you're back on Weber then again for the Norris coming out of the West?
I'm back on Weber. I like Shea Weber, yeah. Big, tough guy, and, prototype. He's kind of a Scott Stevens type of defenseman.
Well,
I like that.
The Kings are hoping that he takes the night off from his Norris contention when they head back to Nashville for the second time here in a week, which makes the farm boy Daryl Sutter happy and probably makes Bob Miller happy. But the Kings probably aren't too happy about having to play a tough Nashville team again, especially so soon.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'll tell you what, thanks for joining me, and it's almost time to get on to our next guest, which is Dave Joseph. I know you've got some other commitments because you kind of double book shows here, so you've got about 3 minutes to get over to your next show, which is Duck Calls with Josh Brewster.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go ahead and let you go here, and everybody,
thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dave Joseph. And this is the Mayor. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. This is From the Arena, which is an Inside Sports production, and we'll be right back after this. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Charles E. Smith Jr. here. This is an Inside Sports production of From the Arena, and very proud to introduce my next guest from ESPN LA. Of course, he is none other than Dave Joseph. You can hear him on 710 ESPN Radio, and follow him on Twitter at Dave Joseph LA. So let's go ahead and go back to our live shot, and here is the esteemed Dave Joseph.
Where?
Right into the camera.
Oh, hey.
He's
Hi.
there. Yeah.
That's me.
That's you.
That's me.
You're looking
Charles.
good, man. Yeah, I am.
I'm Dave.
I am.
Thanks for the plug, by the way. I appreciate that.
Hey, you
It's
bet.
good
And
stuff.
what's this In the Crease show, or what is that show you do?
It's
In the Crease. Is that what it's
It
called?
is In the Crease.
Okay,
It is
perfect.
a hockey podcast
Uh-huh.
that you can hear on ESPNLA.com. Mostly we talk about the Kings. We talk some Ducks as well, local Southern California hockey.
Flavor.
We mix in some other things as well. My co-host is Drew Belzer, who you can hear on 710 ESPN in the afternoons doing sports updates. I do the sports updates in the morning, but we get together and we talk Kings and Ducks hockey and what's going on in the NHL.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. And you, of course,
Yeah.
were a hockey player, much like myself.
Yes.
So
I don't
you
know if
played
I don't know if I can hold your jock, but yeah, we were both hockey players. Are both hockey players.
We're both defensemen.
both defensemen. Big brooding
We're
defensemen.
both
Physical.
slightly. We're both a few pounds over our playing weight.
I would say I'm more than a few pounds over my designated playing weight or desired playing weight, but sure, yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get right down to it here.
Let's do it.
Ducks and Kings tonight. Huge game at Staples Center. A raucous crowd. Did the Ducks well? Let's take this. The Kings won the game. Should they be really proud of this game though, and of this win? Jeff Carter finally gets on the board. He gets two markers. Without it, they probably would have lost this game. But should they be happy about this win? Honestly,
I think the Kings should be happy with this win because
it's a win.
It's a win, and at this point of the season, it's cliche to say, but it's true.
Yes.
You need every 2 points that you can get at this time. You don't want to go into overtime. You don't want to go into a shootout. The Kings haven't had a great shootout record this year, so you need the 2 points. So 4-2, when you look at the way the Kings have been struggling scoring goals,
Right.
last in the league, 2.09 goals per game. 4, again, coming off of a 4-goal win at Minnesota. That's 2 in a row now they put together. 8
And
goals
3 in their
two
last
games.
4.
3 in their last 4.
Yes,
Not coincidentally with Jeff Carter in the lineup.
that's true.
So what does that say about adding Carter to the team? It says a lot. Maybe that teams aren't focused so much on Kopitar, Brown, Richards. Carter adds that extra element. I think it's a big win for the Kings. Not only did they pick up the 2 points tonight, but they also got help because Phoenix lost tonight, Colorado lost tonight, and San Jose lost tonight. So the Kings moving up in the standings while other teams stand pat. So you look at the standings, the Kings are a point out of the 7th spot, actually, a point out of 8th, but also a point out of 7th. 7th and 8th are tied. They're
Right.
a point back, and they're 3 points back of Phoenix, which is first in the Pacific. So if the Kings can catch Phoenix first in the Pacific, they vault all the way to the 3rd spot in the West, which is absolutely enormous. So
First
whether
in
you
the
win
Pacific.
whether you win 4-2 or 5-0, whatever it is, 2 points, you're only 3 points out of first in the Pacific.
So the Kings are 3 points out of either winning the division or missing the playoffs.
That is correct, and that's how jammed up things are in the West right now, right? Daryl Sutter said it after the game in his post-game press. He said there's really like 5 points that separate first place in the Pacific from really missing a playoff spot.
Right.
So you need these 2 points here tonight. So I think it was a big win.
So this is kind of like the Southeast Division a little bit.
It kind of
Where
is like the Southeast Division.
You either
You're
win
right.
the division or you don't make the playoffs.
or you don't.
That's just
You're
the way
right
it
on
is.
you're right on the cusp of not making the playoffs, right?
Well, what was the? Now you talk about Sutter, but what was the overall feel down there in the locker room? And was there partying? Were guys moonwalking? Was there cabbage patching going on
didn't-
down there? Were they that happy in that
I
locker
didn't
room?
see any cabbage patching.
No, a little moonwalking though.
I think I might have saw Jeff Carter do a little moonwalk at
Yeah.
one point. He seemed pretty happy tonight. He
Yeah.
was pretty pumped up. I mean, he scores his first 2 goals as a King,
Right.
Which is great. Fans here have been waiting to see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's known for, is his goal scoring. So that's great. I asked him a couple questions about. I mean, he was all smiles after the game, and I said,
was gonna say.
I said, "Are you? You seem to be smiling a lot, more so than a lot of other guys. Is it that you scored the 2 goals? Is it that you got the 2 points and you got the win, or is there something else?" He said, "No, I mean, this is a big 2 points, but scoring those 2 goals is a big monkey off his back to kind of get him into the flow of things." So
Right, because he was brought here for that
two
purpose.
score goals,
Right.
Exactly. He's a 40-goal scorer.
Right. Exactly.
And has scored 30 goals on numerous occasions.
Exactly.
So that's why they brought him in here. It only took him, a few games to score goals, but that's why he's here. So to get the 2 goals tonight was totally huge for this team.
And also, now the other thing is that not only does Carter finally get on the board, he gets 2 goals, but Mike Richards had 3 assists tonight.
3 assists,
So
right.
he's playing well. They're back on a line together. It's almost like old school in Philly, but out here in the sunshine in Southern California.
And not only that, don't forget Dwight King, the rookie, who had 2 assists tonight. So you're looking at a multi-point game for a rookie. He's only been in the lineup for a handful, it was 10 games or so now. So he's contributing on that line. He's finding, some chemistry with those guys. Also, that opens things up for Dustin Brown, who's now tied with Kopitar for the team high in goals with 19. With what can you
6
say
goals
about that?
in his last 6 games.
6 goals
Dustin
in his
Brown.
last 6 games, 4-game point streak. What's he got? 10 points in his last 8 games or something
it's
like that.
ridiculous.
The guy's on an absolute tear.
And I'm not. And we had the mayor on right before, and they
Sure.
talked about right when those all the trade rumors popped up, and Dustin Brown really started going on a scoring tear. But he felt it was more like coincidence, but Brownie has been on a tear ever since. Right when the Carter trade went down. And then Brownie went on a tear from that point on, and he's really never looked back. In fact, he had a breakaway, which he made. It wasn't the, it wasn't the best breakaway move I've ever seen in my life, but he did get the breakaway, and it was.
Well, he ran out of real estate.
Is that what happened?
As they say, he ran out
He
of real
didn't
estate.
set a Gucci it.
No, he didn't fall. He didn't fall. But he did run out of real estate. You can see where
You
he was
know,
going,
and
man.
I'll tell you something. The way hockey players are, his teammates clowning him about that
Oh, he's
because
never
they
gonna hear
won
the
the
end of
game.
that.
Because they won the game.
He'll never hear the end
They're
of that.
gonna clown him about
Sal's
it
he's
for a
gonna hear
while.
about that for a
Yeah.
long time. Yeah, which is great. Listen, when Dustin Brown's name came up in trade rumors, and I don't know if that had anything to do to kind of fuel his fire to get him going, but he stepped up the very next night. It was a Saturday night after, I think it was Friday. Dustin Brown's name was all over NHL.com, TSN with trade rumors. Is Dustin Brown going to be shipped out of LA? Don't forget, he's the captain, by the way. I said he's one of the few marketable, tradable pieces that this Kings team has after Jack Johnson, after they got rid of Johnson.
Right.
You're looking at Bernie and Dustin Brown. I mean, frankly, if you look at some of the other guys on this team, you're probably not going to trade a Kopitar.
No.
You're not going to trade John Quick. So when you look at guys who are tradable, he has that value. So his name's all over NHL.com, TSN.ca. In trade rumors, he goes out the very next night, and what does he do? He scores a hat trick. So it's tough to trade him on Monday morning when the trade deadline comes around, and teams are calling saying, can we get Dustin Brown? Gee, I don't know. At that point, you kind
You
of
should
say,
have called me Friday.
yeah, maybe you should have called me Thursday or Friday, and we would have had something here. But yeah, no, so he's been on a tear. And I think that just adds to the depth. Once you bring in a guy like Carter, that adds to the depth of this Kings team, where it takes the focus off Brown and Kopitar and those guys. It allows them to do what they need to do in play their role, and let Carter and Richards and King do their thing.
Well, yeah, look at that. Since Carter came in, and we talked about that, they beat Chicago, and then but Carter didn't score. But you could kind of, and what I see is, now granted, Nashville is a real juggernaut, and Nashville kind of put it on them when they were there.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the Kings have been energized as a team since Carter has come in.
No question.
They're just playing well.
No question.
Even though he hasn't scored, but it just almost seems like there's something that happened. And when you look at that, when you look at him flying around out there, that good quick shot, the size of him, like, I don't want to say Dustin Penner with speed, but
a
Dustin
thinner
Penner with
Dustin
speed.
Penner?
Well, we found out that doesn't really matter,
That's
whether or not he loses weight.
That's a good point. But he is a thinner Dustin Penner.
Right.
Yeah, and he's Dustin Penner
With a quicker shot.
With a quicker shot and super great hands. Not that
Right.
Dustin Penner doesn't have good hands, but I would say Carter has better hands than Dustin Penner, in my humble opinion.
Let's not have this digress. So we'll just go ahead.
Let
and
me say
that.
this:
Yeah.
I think that when Jeff Carter was added to this team, I think it did give the locker room a shakeup, a much-needed shakeup. The Kings were kind of in a lull where they thought, well, this is the team we have. Let's just kind of play a 1-0 or a 2-1 game and see what goes on.
It is a 3-2 league,
and
as you
it
know.
is a 3-2 league, except for tonight it was a 4-2 league.
But that's an empty netter.
It wasn't
that a
empty.
real
So it
goal?
really was a 3-2 league.
It was a 3-2
It was a
league,
3-2
yes.
league. Daryl Sutter. So I think when Jack got traded and Jeff Carter came in, there was almost like, it wasn't a sigh of relief. It was more, well, now here are the guys we have. Now we've got a proven scorer. And now let's see what we can do with these guys. And it kind of shook up the room. I think. And it kind of gave guys a burst of energy, an extra a jolt in their step maybe, just to see a guy like Jeff Carter come in and to have management say, we're going to give you this piece, this added piece, to see what we can do now, and let's try to make a playoff push here. I think that gives guys a vote of confidence.
And, well, let's look at the back line, though, since Jack Johnson is gone. He's not coming back. The career minus 90 defenseman is no longer on the Kings roster.
Not here.
But Slava Voinov, he's getting a chance to fill in, over the long haul, because he had been up and down this year.
Right.
Now, he's going to be the one who's wanting to fill that void. They want him to fill that void left by Jack Johnson, if you can really call it a void. Is he ready to play, Joe? Just stay up here and play on a nightly basis, night in, night out. The grind.
I think he is. I think, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he was a +7 coming in and puts up points, see some power play time. Very good with the. He's a smaller defenseman compared to what the Kings have, 5'11", 190 pounds, somewhere in there.
Right.
So he's a little smaller. Good hands, good with the puck, makes smart decisions, fairly good in the defensive zone, can add that offensive flair that you're looking for. And I think the reason that the Kings were able to trade Jack Johnson was because Voinov was there. He was ready to take over.
Right.
He's ready to fill those minutes. Does he have to play the minutes that Jack played? No, not necessarily. I just think he has to play a solid game, a steady game every single night, and I think the game will be there. I think he's a good piece to fill in for Jack.
Right, to be the...
And he's not a minus 90 for his career.
yeah.
He's young. But
Right. Give him time, or what? Is that what you're saying?
no, but he's a +7. It's the last I checked, so I don't think that equals minus 90 when you go.
Well, yeah,
Nothing against
the other
Jack Johnson.
thing
I'm not trying to badmouth Jack
No,
Johnson.
I know.
But when you look at the numbers, and a lot of people say plus minus is not everything. You can't. But listen, when you're a
It's
minus
gotta-
90, that's glaring to me.
And what
That is a
I always
glaring-
said about Jack Johnson was he was not a minus 90 because it was about turning the puck over and things like that. What I think it was with Jack Johnson was that the Kings were not able to get into their offense when he was out there.
Right.
And if your team can't score when you're out there, there's only one other thing that can happen.
You're gonna
inevitably.
get scored on.
Right. Even if it's not that often. But if your team basically never scores when you're on the ice,
Right.
only one other thing can happen, which is going to affect your plus minus. So it was a little bit odd that way because you watch him, you don't see him committing a lot of turnovers or anything, but he's
Well,
always a minus at the end of the game. Not a lot. Not a lot.
I might disagree
Here and
with you
there.
there. Here's what stood out to me about the minus 90. If you look at Jack's stats this year, and I think he was a minus 12 or something
When
like
he
that.
left, yeah.
When he left. So he was worst on the team in plus minus, or one of the worst. I think he was the worst. His defensive partner, he played a lot with Willie Mitchell this year. It was
Yeah.
always 3 and 33 on the back line. Well, if you look at Willie Mitchell's number, Mitchell was a plus 6. So how is one guy a minus 12 and the other guy's a plus 6? That's
That's
an
like last year.
That's an 18-point differential.
Yeah,
right.
last year he was
a-
right. He was a
Willie
minus
was a plus.
21,
Right.
and Willie's a plus 1. That's his defensive partner.
That's a big gap.
How does that happen?
Well,
Every
that
time he
tells you
sees a
that-
turnover, he jumps over the
that
board.
tells you there's a problem. And that's why I said he had a manageable contract. It was a good number. He was a tradable asset. So now's the time to make the trade. And I think the Kings did a good
Well,
job.
I
of
thought that contract was tradable when they signed him to it.
Exactly
I said,
right.
okay, that's good.
And
if they
that-
need to move him, that's
and
an
that
easy
may
enough
have
contract.
been why
yeah.
they signed him to that number.
Exactly. Well,
So-
we're just about out of time. We try to
no.
keep a tight time schedule here, but do have to announce off the topic of hockey.
Oh no, you're
North
throwing me a
Carolina.
curveball here. Yeah,
North
I've
Carolina
heard of 'em. I've
beat
heard of 'em.
Duke
Oh no,
88-70, won the regular season ACC title. I love the Tar Heels, and
You
that's
do, I
that.
know
That's
that.
why I had to make that little
do you
announcement
make of
there,
that?
and that's it.
what do you make of that?
UNC all the way,
Really?
all the way.
You're picking him as a national champs this year?
I am
Wow.
over Kentucky.
Dean Smith still coaching there?
No, he's not. In fact, he's suffering from dementia, so
No,
that really isn't
come
funny.
on. I didn't know that. I would have
Yeah,
never said
okay.
that otherwise.
It figures.
So go Tar Heels. That's
It figures,
good. And
yes.
a big win over rival Duke.
Yeah.
Oh.
We didn't let him off the hook this
You
time.
must be a happy man tonight.
I am very happy.
Kings win, Tar Heels win.
Exactly. It doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
Yeah. Trifecta.
Charles, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Having Dave Joseph on, the Kings win and the Tar Heels win.
Oh, it's a perfect night.
Fantastic.
It's a perfect
So,
day in Southern
We'll
California.
go ahead and give you a big send-off here from ESPN LA. That's Dave Joseph. You can follow him on Twitter. I'm sure he sends out some of the more interesting tweets around.
Oh, I
at
tweeted
Dave
tonight.
Joseph
At
LA.
Dave Joseph LA, and you can hear me weekday mornings on 710 ESPN in Los Angeles from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. doing sports updates.
Perfect. You know what? I know you're a hockey player like I am, so when it comes time to get some new gear, you go to thepuckshopshere.com. They already have the best prices online, and they offer free shipping on orders over $75. Enter the promo code Inside Sports upon checkout. You get an additional 10% off.
10% off thepuckshopshere.com.
Yeah,
I love those
fantastic.
guys.
Yeah, that's where I get all my stuff.
I love it. That's great. Inside Sports, you get an extra 10% discount.
You do.
That is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. That's how I take care of everybody out here.
This guy's the best.
All right.
Unbelievable.
And we've got 2 more shows left after every Saturday Kings game.
Love
so
it.
we'll be back in a couple of more weeks here. So everybody, thanks for watching. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. That's Dave Joseph. The show is From the Arena, which is an Inside Sports production, and we will see you next time.